Remember when this league was great? I sure as shit do. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Educated Ignorance Podcast here on the For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network. It is Conference Tournament Championship Week, whatever you want to call it. At this point, I don't even know what I'm calling it, but we are breaking down every big conference tournament bracket. We are giving you the ins, the outs, who's on the bubble, all the goods you need to know as we are inching closer to that fateful day, Selection Sunday. We're, depending when you're listening to this, it will be Wednesday night. We're probably about 4 days away, 5 days or whatever it is, 4 days away from having a bracket to fill out. And let's not take for granted these moments, though. Conference tournament weekend always delivers. Conference championship weekend, whatever you want to call it, always delivers. It's personally, I enjoy this one almost more sometimes than the opening weekend of the tournament, just because you get to Friday and Saturday of the conference tournaments. I mean, we are talking big time stuff all day, big time games, and then it's just fun stuff. Anywho, but we have done a couple videos already. We still got some stuff coming to you guys tomorrow. This is coming out Wednesday night. We just wrapped up our Big East tournament bracket preview. I still don't know what I'm calling these things, but our Big East tournament preview, please check that out if you haven't already at the end of this. You can pause this and go check it out then and then come back. Hello, thank you for joining it. But real quick, I would like to tell you also that yesterday we dropped our Big 10 and Big 12 tournament preview. So pause again, go back and check those out. All right, welcome back. If you also have the opportunity, please like the video. Welcome if this is your first time in. Please like it, please share it. And if you really like everything, subscribe, of course, to our YouTube and our TikTok at For Fantasy Sake QC. But what we would really appreciate is if you told at least one of your friends. That itself means the world to us. All right, housekeeping out of the way, let's get into it. It is time for the ACC Tournament Preview, and let's just start with the general conception that I have. Remember when this tournament was the glory Hounds? Remember back in the 2010s, after the Big East kind of corrupted? Well, not corrupted, but self-destructed. There we go. And it turned, we ended up with Syracuse and, all those other, the teams from the Big East that joined. We had Notre Dame come into the ACC. When the ACC turned into a 15-team league, right? I remember when that happened. And this league was pure pandemonium for nearly a decade. Well, I guess over a half decade. Yeah, you have your North Carolinas and your Dukes who are always good and fascinating, but Notre Dame was awesome. You'd have my good Miami teams. Virginia Tech was pesky. Syracuse was awesome. Virginia was a motherfucker to go against. Florida State had some awesome teams. And now I understand that the ACC still, more times than not, somehow, some way is going to produce a team deep into the second weekend and more than likely into the Final Four. Come to think, the only time we haven't had an ACC team in the Final Four in the last Last year we had Duke or 2 years ago we had Duke and North Carolina. Last year we had Miami make the run. The COVID year was the only year I can think of. We had Gonzaga, UCLA, and Baylor, Houston. I mean, 2019, of course, we had Virginia. North Carolina went to back-to-back national titles, so national title games. So like the ACC has been well represented here over the last decade. Syracuse made a Final Four in there as well. They made a couple Final Fours, though. I think one of them might have been when they were. I think the 2013 one was that their final Big East Final Four. Might have been. Correct me if I'm wrong. Regardless, these programs have been programs. If you're Lou Holtz, program. These programs have been, they are synonymous with making deep runs, having his history. And right now, this league just has kind of fallen to the wayside. It's, in my opinion, it's out of the, it's the second worst high major league. The Pac-12, listen, football, Pac-12 had its run this year. It was amazing. But for college basketball this year, the Pac-12 has been putrid. And ACC, you just don't have good quality teams. In my opinion, there's only two teams that are bona fide locks for the NCAA tournament. I don't want to see Virginia play in the tournament. Pitt and Wake Forest, to me, haven't done enough to deserve a chance to play in March. Clemson is very fringy. And outside of that, Syracuse is average. Virginia Tech is average. Florida State hasn't been good in 3 years or 2 or 3 years. Miami this season. Listen, when you lose a bunch of pros, guess what happens? Your team isn't going to be as good. After going to the Final Four last year, they're the 14 seed in the ACC tournament. Louisville. I mean, I didn't even mention Louisville in all these runs. I know they won the title. Back when they won the title in 2013, they were still, 2012, 2013, they were still in the American. But like ACC Louisville still has some really good years to it. They had some really good seasons. And they're just ass right now. They're probably, if DePaul didn't exist, Louisville, I mean, listen, let's just put it this way. There's a Mount Rushmore of the worst high major teams. 3 of the 4 are Michigan, DePaul, and Louisville. Whoever the 4th one is on that shit stew, you can argue it with whoever you want. But regardless, the ACC has just turned into this disaster of a league, and it sucks. It really does. And I've tried to think of like what the deal is, but the only thing I can think of is that these teams outside of North Carolina, who, let's be real, I mean, North Carolina, the last 3 years that they've had have been living on old dudes and guys that transfer in. These teams don't recruit pros anymore. Like, look at what Virginia had when they went to the national title game. When they won the national title. Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome, Hunter, those guys are all pros. All of them were pros. Mamadi Diakite, Kie Clark, Braxton Key, all of those guys. Clark isn't a pro, but all of them guys except for Clark, who, by the way, Clark was a 4-year, every game, all day, every day starter in college basketball. Those dudes were good, really good for Florida State. Think of the pros that they had on their roster. Devin Vassell, Fiondu Kabengele, Trent Forrest, Terrence Mann. It's just they had, and then before that, a couple of years before that, they had Dwayne Bacon, Malik Beasley, Jonathan Isaac, and then after the pandemic, they rolled out Scotty Barnes. Still had a couple other guys that were good, like even MJ Walker, those types of dudes. What I'm saying is, like, those teams don't recruit that level anymore. Notre Dame hasn't had high-level players come in. Like, their best players at North Carolina, and he just hit 1,000 threes at Duke to knock them off on Saturday. Like, North Carolina, once RJ and Mondo and those guys leave, like, I mean, listen, Hubert Davis has done a good job to recover, especially Listen, they made a crazy run to get to the title game 2 years ago. They stunk last year. Don't even make the tournament. This season, they've done a great job to bounce back. Armando Bacot's been awesome. RJ Davis won ACC Player of the Year. They hit it right in the transfer portal with Harrison Ingram and Cormac Ryan, who are wanting new fresh starts, and they got it. Elliot Cadeau is an amazing reclassified. It never works, but this kid has been stubbed, and they've needed him. All of the stuff that they have works, but outside of Cadeau, they don't have much when it comes to recruiting right as of right now. So, I mean, who knows? But and then you look at Duke. Listen, I think Shire. You could say it one of two ways. Listen, I think Shire does more than Coach K did. People don't want to admit that Coach K kind of ran out of tap water there down the stretch. He got carried a bit by some high-level dudes. I mean, I don't think Coach K actually showed up to work a day when he had Zion, RJ, and Cam Reddish. It's an embarrassment that team with Trey Jones and the guys that they had, Delora and Thornton, I believe it was up front. Like, they should not have not gotten to the Final Four. At least they should have won the national title, in my opinion. And the fact that they didn't is terrible. And listen, that team that had Paolo, I mean, Paolo was a dog. They had AJ Griffin, Mark Williams. That's 3 NBA players. At the end of the day, I mean, those, and then you have good other role guys like a Jeremy Roach, who was really good for them. They lose that. And listen, Filipowski's a good player, but he's kind of he's a lottery pick type, but it's more on what his ceiling could be as his ability to be a catch and shoot guy in the NBA. McCann and Proctor don't really move the needle for me as legitimate pro prospects. And I know that I've sat here and absolutely torched the league for 15 minutes now, but that's just what I see as the reason the ACC isn't what it used to be. And it's a shame. Could this tournament itself be fun? Yes, but man, like, I remember 2018 it was Virginia, Florida State, Duke, and North Carolina. That was Zion's year. Dude, like, the Duke, North Carolina, I said this the other day, the Duke, North Carolina games used to be must-see television because not only, like, did it have elite play and, yeah, the rivalry, but they had – and this isn't me saying – I love college basketball. So I'm not trying to be an elitist saying – the only reason college basketball good is to check out the pros, but like, people hype up the the Carolina Duke game like Saturday, doesn't move the needle for me like it used to. Like, go back, like the games that they played, like when Bagley was at Duke and when Zion was at Duke, those Carolina teams, like you had Page and Barry and Jackson and Kennedy Meeks and all those guys. There's another dude, number 11, I forgot his name, Bryce Johnson. Those dudes that went to 2 straight title games and lost to Villanova, then won the following year. Those guys, and one of them, one of those teams, I believe, is the one that played. I'm pretty sure one of them teams played the team with Bagley on it. Regardless, but like those years, you had like all these killer teams. And then the year after, you've got like with Zion, like the year Zion was at Duke, you had Zion, RJ, Cam on one team. Like UNC had Kobe White, Nazir Little, Cam Johnson. It's just the level of dudes on the floor. And then go look like the year I'm talking about. Virginia, of course, we talked to everyone they had on their team. Florida State had Vassell and Forrest and Terrence Mann and Phil Kofer. Like, the just level of player in the ACC isn't what it used to be, and it stinks. It sucks. I don't like it because the ACC tournament used to be like Friday and Saturday, especially when you got to the semis and the finals of the ACC tournament. It was like watching like the difference in that between watching like a Big Ten tournament final or sometimes the Big East or even like the Big 12 is you are watching like, if you're watching the semis of the ACC tournament, you're watching like 6 lottery picks potentially in a 4-hour stretch. And it's just, We haven't had that, and it sucks. Anywho, I just ragdolled this conference for 15 minutes. Now I'm going to tell you who's going to win it. I believe, listen, right now we mentioned the bubble. It's a very thin bubble for the ACC. I will say this, no other, as much as I think this is this is the most chalky bracket of all of them. There is no other team, or excuse me, there is no other bracket that is as top heavy as this, because outside of North Carolina and Duke, I struggle to find a way that someone knocks them off. But I will say, if there's ever a bracket where someone's going to just fall out of their ass and get hot and make a tournament run, it's going to be this one. Think of Virginia Tech a couple years ago as like an 11 seed when they beat Paulo's team in the ACC tournament final. They went on a run, 5 games in 5 days, and won the ACC. Maybe, listen, I don't know if anybody can do that per se. I think Clemson could make a run. They could go from the 6th seed to win it. Outside of that, man, it's tough. Like, Syracuse doesn't have juice. Tech and VT and Florida State don't have any juice. Wake Forest has some good players, and Hunter Silas has been really good for them this year, but they're so wishy-washy. Like, Wake Forest knocked off Duke 2 weeks ago. Their students then proceeded to murder Kyle Filipowski on the floor. He was then revived by the good graces of Coach Krzyzewski. And since then, Wake Forest has been bad, just being honest. They had horrendous losses. They blew, so they had some really bad games. Like, they go after that, they turn right around and they lose to Notre Dame on the road. And I know Notre Dame's played better to end the season, but like, good hell, man. You win that Duke game and everyone's like, all right, they're making the tournament. And then they lose 3 of their final 4. They lose at Notre Dame. They lose by 11 away at Virginia Tech when they were up in the big in the first half. Then they lose at Wake Forest, or they lose at home against Georgia Tech by a point. They then beat Clemson to end the season, which is a good win. Clemson's a fringe tournament team, but man, Wake Forest could have been sitting here like, even if they split, they could be 20-12 right now, and we'd be sitting here thinking, man, they're in. I think if they would have went 3-1, but no, they kind of stubbed their dick on themselves. All right, predictions. I'm boring here because I'm going to dare these teams to be great. I think Clemson, that's the only team that I really am going to feel upsetty about. I think they're going to get to the semifinals of the ACC tournament, and they will take on Duke. I think Duke will knock off Syracuse in the quarters. North Carolina, I see. Florida State played them well at home when they went to the Tuck, but I think North Carolina will get by whoever they play in that quarterfinal matchup. Florida State maybe could cause some problems for them, but I don't know. They've been very up and down this season. And then I think Wake Forest will win their first game, and I'll pick them to knock off Coach Capel. And it'll set up potentially a win and in spot for Wake Forest. You got to believe if they can get to the finals, that'll at least give them a puncher's chance to get in. I think we're going to get round 3, Duke, North Carolina. I hate to say it, but, you know what? Screw it. We'll get weird. I'm going to go Clemson knocking off Duke. Then I'm going to go North Carolina knocking off Wake Forest. And we'll go North Carolina winning the ACC tournament. I am, listen, I would love to put like a final of Wake Forest and Clemson. That would be fun. But it's just hard for me to think North Carolina is playing so good right now. I know I picked a lot of 1 seeds in these, and I'm going to regret it. But hey, more chances for me to be wrong. So, yeah, we're going to say North Carolina, Wake Forest. North Carolina wins. Clemson, Duke. We're going to say Clemson knocks off Duke to punch their ticket to the dance. And then North Carolina, though, knocks them off in the tournament final. And North Carolina, Series C champ. All right, that'll do it. Please like this video if you've liked this video, of course. Subscribe if you really like it, and please, we really would appreciate it if you went and told one of your friends. This has been the Educated Ignorant Podcast. If you ain't got your game, you best pass the 6. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.